to the Women Who Code podcast. I'm Natalia Daies, the Senior Director of Communications and Marketing with Women Who Code. And I am very excited to be having a conversation with a group of diverse, exceptional technologists who also just happen to be parents too. So we're going to be talking about working, career, and parenthood. And I'm super excited about that. I'll get started with introducing our guests. Up first, we have Odette Nemes, who is a queer woman who migrated to the United States from Puerto Rico. She has dedicated her career to addressing racial and gender inequity by building and managing programs that inspire people to reach their full potential. She's proud to be head of growth at Onramp, a company that builds custom technical apprenticeships for clients such as Vanguard, Amazon, and Twitch. Odette has shared custody of her awesome and intense kids who are 3 and 6. She has an Excel for meal planning because of her limited cooking skills, cannot stay on the sidelines during soccer practices, and has been too ambitious in exposing her young kids to live theater. When she doesn't have her hands full as a single mom, she enjoys playing basketball, attending concerts and musicals, recovering on the couch, same, and not having to pack school lunches. Welcome, Odette.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
We're happy to have you here. Up next, we have Madona Wambua, who is an author, keynote speaker, senior Android engineer, and Google developer expert for Android with over 7 years of experience building Android applications. She is also a GDG NYC lead, Women Tech Maker ambassador, and a host of Tech Talks with Madona, a podcast geared towards supporting women in STEM. Above all, she's a mom to 2 adorable boys, a 2nd grader and a 1st grader who keep her very busy. Welcome, Madona.
Thank you very much for having me today.
Thank you for being with us. Up next, we have Valarie Regas, a DevOps fanatic, accomplished speaker, a Georgia Tech coding bootcamp graduate, and a veteran mommy. She holds a BA in psychology and currently works in developer relations. After years being a stay-at-home mom, she decided to change her life by entering tech and has learned a lot along the way. In addition to DevOps, she enjoys mixed martial arts fighting, very cool, tabletop role-playing games, public speaking, creating tiny humans, and activism of all sorts. Welcome, Valarie.
Thanks for having me. And yes, my children do know that if they're at a protest and police come, they should go limp.
I love that. Thanks for being with us. And last but certainly not least, we have Melissa Hong, who is the CEO and owner of OMG Code, a tech company specializing in web and app development. She believes in never giving up, believing in yourself, and following your dreams. She's a single mother of 2 boys, Sky and Zen. Welcome, Melissa.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
How exciting. All of you have very different backgrounds. I should also share, because I didn't share in the beginning, that I am a single mom to a 3-year-old autistic boy who is adorable in all of the ways. And so I'm really excited to be having this conversation with you all. So to get us started, can you briefly just share with us, and let's start with Valarie, your career journey and how motherhood has impacted it.
Absolutely, yes. So I was, as you mentioned, I did 5 years hard time as a stay-at-home mom. And during that time, I was miserable. I loved the amount of time I got to spend with my children. I have 3. I've got a 3-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 13-year-old now. And I was just bored and miserable. And, it's the hardest job I've ever had. And I used to be a bar bouncer. I would rather get paid to fight drunken frat boys than have to cook and clean and drive and be a psychiatrist and conflict resolution expert and all the things that go into being a stay-at-home. And my husband, who's a technical architect, he realized how miserable I was and said, baby, have you considered going back to school? Because, again, psych degree, I have $85,000 in debt to not be able to make much money. And I did. I went to the coding boot camp at Georgia Tech. Anyone listening that wants to reach out on LinkedIn and ask questions about that, I am always there to help with those answers. And it was an interesting experience. I had to do the night and weekend program for 6 months because I was still doing the full-time job as a stay-at-home. I wrote my first full stack application from a bathroom floor because my then toddler was potty training, and that's how life goes. My children were my testers for my homework. I figure if my 7-year-old could figure it out, it's probably intuitive. And yeah, it was a lot having, at the time, 2 children going through the boot camp. And then after I graduated, I went through that moment of panic of, I've just spent $10,000 of money that my husband made because I was under the delusion that I didn't contribute to the household because I didn't get a paycheck. That was crazy pants. If you're a stay-at-home, you're amazing. Mwah. Revel in how awesome you are. But at the time I was misguided. And I felt really guilty. Like, what if I can't get a job and I've spent all this money and I was afraid that no one would want to hire a mom. I'd read some unpleasant articles about it. So I did my first tech talk at a Women Who Code International Women's Day event. And I spent my entire time talking about how stay-at-home parents have a unique skill set that you can only get in that role, and how that translates to make us better employees in different ways. And that accomplished a few things. One, I got my first role. I got a DevOps internship, which doesn't exist. I don't know how I manifested that, but I'm just thankful it happened. Spoiler alert, women lifting me up and helping me is how I got that. That's why I'm so passionate about helping other women. But it also gave me the bug for speaking. And I've, in the last 5 years, I've lost count of how many conferences, meetups, events at which I've spoken. I love the community. I'm all about people. And then I had the unique experience of going through my 3rd pregnancy at my first company. And I had never really had to do a lot of the working mom things. With my oldest, I was a single mother. It's the hardest job. So kudos. I was a single mom running a family business. So my oldest girl just went to work with me. And there's pictures of me teaching judo with this baby in my uniform being held in place by my black belt so that I could yell at students while she nursed, And then with my second, I was a stay-at-home. So having that 3rd child with, there was no maternity leave, technically. I took some short-term disability to get about a month off. So going back to work, sleep deprived as a DevOps engineer, responsible for, our builds, with no sleep, that was neat. Having to figure out what a breast pump even was on my 3rd child. I'd never used what this contraption. This looks like a torture device. Why would I? Oh, because I have to go to work. It was just a whole new world. Very eye-opening. And yeah, all of that to say, I'm very passionate about parental leave in general as a business case, not as something to make parents feel good. Because while, yes, I would have liked more time to hold my sweet, precious little angel baby, I put bugs in the code because people who don't sleep shouldn't be in your code base. And I once walked into my office after pumping with my shirt off because people who don't sleep forget things in other rooms. And it was a black t-shirt on a black chair. And I was very, very tired. And there's definitely a business case for parents need time to recover. So yeah, that's working and going through the boot camp and all these things as a mom. It's almost like, the boot camps are hard. And so when you have children on top of it, it's like you're drowning and someone hands you a baby at the same time. My hat is off to literally any parent who manages to go back to school, get through it, learn, accomplish, move on with their career. Children are the best blessing I've ever received, and I can't imagine my life without them. They are incredible. They are also time intensive and a lot of work, and there's a lot of pressure to do it right because that's the future of our nation and our world. And so it's not as simple as, throw down a bowl of food and hope that they're fine. Like you can't just feed them and house them. You have to teach them morals and values and ethics and how to be a good citizen. And that's a lot when you're also going from calling your computer the magic box that holds email to being a full stack developer in 6 months. It's just a lot. So again, to y'all out there who are parents, you have nothing but my undying respect and admiration because it's a whole different journey.
Wow, Valerie, we're gonna learn more about your journey. You have a very unique perspective, so thank you for sharing. Melissa, I see you coming off mute. What you want to share next?
Yeah, so oh my gosh, Valerie, I understand you so much just because like I went through the same thing where, you know, I went through a coding boot camp, coding dojo. And while I was doing that, I was with my first son and going through that whole experience. And then even after that, pretty much having my second child, a couple years later. And then I was like, well, actually, I started off, actually before everything, I started off in medical school. And then I decided it wasn't something that I was passionate in. I think I always believe in following, what you're passionate in. So I decided to switch over and did the coding boot camp. And when that all kind of occurred, you just learn to, like, I kind of got thrown into the environment because I'm a freelancer, and then I started my own company. So in a different perspective, instead of going the corporate route, what I did was I did the freelance route, and I just started remote work with my kids. Like that's how it started. Like I started working, nursing them while I'm working, like, while I'm on the computer, like they're literally on my lap while I'm on client calls. So like it's just something that you have to learn. And what you learn from all that is that it's okay to have chaos. It's okay to have discontinuity and asynchronicity, because there's no other way around it when you have kids and you're working from home. Like you have to be able to do work and then take a moment to take care of your children and then come back to work, and then, oh, they have to have breakfast. Oh, they have to, go to the potty, so you have to take them there. And that discontinuity kind of breaks your rhythm in work, and you kind of have to accept that and be like, you know what, I'm going to think of it as a break instead of as something negative and something, that is a bad thing, but actually see it as like a positive, like, oh, and now I'm going to take a break for the 16th time today, and then take your moment with your children and then come back. I think that's the benefit though of freelancing or, doing your own company, is that you're actually, even though you feel like you're away from your children, you're actually right there. Like when you're doing remote work, you're like always there. So you can almost prioritize work in that way, because you're like, okay, my kids are fine. I can now focus on work. And then, just bring them in every once in a while to, of course you have your regular duties, but my work day is like, it starts from like eyes open to eyes closed. So whether it's work related to, my clients or my kids, like you just are constantly, on the go, I would say.
I'd love to jump in because to hear Valarie and Melissa's stories, I actually ended up landing at a job after I had my kids, to get underrepresented folks and moms and career changers into tech. So to hear the stories of Valarie and Melissa juggling being moms and completing a boot camp and then landing their first job in tech and transitioning in just makes my heart warm. For me, the way that I landed there, I was actually in the nonprofit space. I was at Girls Inc. for 12 years, working to get low-income girls of color into tech, teaching them HTML, over 20 years ago, and object-oriented programming and all these things that now are the rave, thank God. And was really trying to start a family with my then wife, and really struggling with infertility, which I think is something that isn't talked about enough. So that was, it was really difficult to get to the point of actually being a mom. And then once I was a mom, forget it. That's the real hard part, no? And so I took some time off. I had paid leave and then went back to work. So I was learning, all right, how do I juggle this, right? Like Valarie saying, how do I pump? What is going on here? And it was really challenging. So I lasted about 6 months and was burnt out in the nonprofit life. And decided, okay, I'm going to take some time off. I want to have a second kid. And then eventually I'll jump back into work. And I ended up that little bit of time of stay at home, the same deal, Valarie, worst, hardest job in the world. Stay home with your kids without being paid. And I wanted to get back into the workforce. And then the pandemic hit. So that really messed up my plans. And and I ended up getting a divorce during the pandemic. So then I was, at home with 3 years off from the nonprofit world, having to figure out, how am I going to pay my mortgage in the Bay Area? How am I going to support these 2 kids? So for me, I felt like my hand was forced. Like, I need to get into tech because this is the way that I'm going to be able to provide for my family. So I did. I landed a job. Thank God for the network at Onramp, where I consider it my returnship, right? Taking 3 years off and then getting back into the workforce and transitioning. And now I, am fortunate enough to be able to set up these opportunities for folks myself, for moms transitioning in, for other folks. And it's just, a dream for me to be able to give folks these opportunities that are able to triple their salaries and still be able to do mission-driven work in the tech industry, and to hear stories like this all the time. And they're the best employees. For me, it's like, come on, who doesn't want to hire somebody who is a mom that can actually juggle taking care of their kids while working, while doing a boot camp, or taking care of their kids, not getting paid, doing a boot camp. I mean, these are the most skilled, incredible, agile employees you're ever going to want. So I'm just really happy to be here and see the examples that I hear about every day with you all today.
Wow. I mean, I think I'm going to jump in and just say, just listening to all the stories, I was just saying, wow. And also, yes. And also, go women. And also, oh my God, such great stuff. So for me, it's very similar to Valarie. So I took actually a sabbatical, and that's when I got pregnant with my first kid. I decided to stay home. And as a foreigner, it's very different and very tough because I don't have any family members around. So I wasn't able to leave my kids with anybody that I could trust. So I just had me and my husband. And my husband was actually trying to finish his PhD during that time. So it was just us, and then my firstborn. And then I got my second kid just I think years apart, 1 year, because they are 8 and 6. So as you can see, it happened very closely. And you're right, Valarie, I really felt like I wasn't contributing. And this is coming from working a very good job, a very stable job. And now I have nothing. And we have to depend on my husband for everything, for groceries, rent. I mean, everything was on him. And I felt very sad that I wasn't able to do anything. But that did not stop me. And I saw the light at the end of the tunnel. And this is through Women Who Code, actually, which is so amazing. I just want to say this is one of the great things that ever happened to my career, just being a member of Women Who Code. Because it's through Women Who Code, I got to ignite my passion, and that is through contributing through their online, this online. So Women Who Code has, so I work in Android, and Women Who Code has a mobile lead track, and I was able to join that track and start contributing through that. And the way I was contributing is just going back, finding the content, and just learning what's happening in the ecosystem, staying up to date. All this time I was not working. Now, when the pandemic happened too, you're right, I was like, oh my God, how am I going to get a job I've not been working all these years, and now I need to go back to work. But guess what? It wasn't hard. So the contribution I was doing for Women Who Code really helped me a lot, because I was able to be up with my knowledge. And when I went for my first interview, everybody was asking me, how do you know all the latest content happening in the Android world? How do you know that stuff? And I told them, I just share with other women who, at the Women Who Code group. And I was hired. So that was very nice. And fast forward now, I get to travel ever with my kids. I am happy to say that it's been a great journey. I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I just don't even know what to say. Just to say, being a mom is so awesome. And to moms out there, congrats. It's not easy. Tap yourself at the back.
Thank you all for sharing your unique journeys as moms and as technologists. A lot of you kind of hinted at what could be coined mom guilt. And so I'd be interested in hearing from whoever feels inspired. How do you balance being career-driven while also experiencing some mom guilt, or feeling like maybe you're not spending as much time as you would like with your kids?
When I got my, so I've been speaking at events for 5 years, and that typically involves travel. There's only a few in Atlanta each year at which I reliably speak. So, okay. So I've got the travel aspect. Of my 3 children, my center child, the one that we all revolve around, not the middle child, our center child, she does not do well with me being away. So that's been something to deal with, crying, "Mom, you're leaving for the airport again," and then, there's the things like I tried to give myself the gift of some mental health help a while back, where from 6 to 9 p.m. there was, group therapy dealing with trauma and coping skills and such, because I am a firm believer that every adult and most children should probably have what I call a life consultant, which is what I call therapists. In business, if we're not subject matter experts, we call it a consultant. Well, guess what? I'm not an expert on my life. I need a consultant. So I was giving myself this gift, and there was a lot of mom guilt about it, because, I'm working all day, and then for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, I'm hanging out with my kids, getting a meal on the table, ready to go. And then I'm up on a call from 6 to 9, and there were tears. And why are you always on a call? So some of the things that I've implemented, one, when you're in DevRel and you travel a lot, you rack up Sky Miles like nobody's business. So for example, in February, I was speaking at a conference in the Bay Area, and I took my 13-year-old with me, let her take a full week off school. We went on a cruise to the Bay for Valentine's as a date. She borrowed my dress. It was surreal for me. Because don't you know, she's still a 10.5-pound baby, not a 13-year-old who can steal my clothes. But we took a week and played in San Francisco, and the school did not approve of my choices, but I did. Things like when I'm at a conference, if I'm at a speaker's dinner and my middle child calls because she really misses me, I step away and I answer the call. And sometimes I ask international strangers to say hello to my 8-year-old to make her feel special and loved across an ocean. When I speak in Atlanta, with very little exception, I keep the big kids out of school. And, I once had a school social worker fuss at me and say, their education's important. They should be learning every day. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. They did learn that day. At 8 a.m., they learned about aspect ratio on slides. Then they learned about AV systems for large events. Then they learned how to set up a lavalier microphone. Then they learned how mommy delivers a keynote. And then they went to several different vendors, because the rule was they could only take home useless pieces of plastic from the swag tables if they heard a pitch. So they learned a lot about technology that day. For me, it's from day one, it's been integrating my kids into my life. One, I don't want to model not having a life, making them think that the day that their kid's born, their life ends. That's not sustainable. And that's how adult depression, comes out of nowhere. As a single mom, there's pictures of my oldest with cotton balls shoved in her ears and Band-Aids over to keep them in at my sister's concert, because, well, it's an all ages show, and I want to go see my sister's band play, and I can nurse the baby to sleep at a bar just as easily as at home. Finding a way to safely integrate them into my life as much as possible while still fostering their interests and talents. It's a delicate balance, but it leads to a situation where the kids don't feel excluded from adult lives. They don't feel like they're losing you to work, and you don't feel resentful for giving up things that they haven't asked you to give up. The children never, that's the thing that no one talks about. The children never ask us to give up opportunities. They don't ask us to go without hobbies or interests or time away with friends. We do that to ourselves, assuming it's what they want. My kids don't begrudge me a night out with my friends, especially when I take time to cook with them and spend quality time before I go out, and then kiss them on the forehead when I get home and say goodnight. It doesn't have to be this all or nothing thing. And, when my third was born, there was one day I wasn't safe to drive, and I was right by my office for a doctor's appointment with the baby. And I thought, well, if my colleagues can bring their dogs into the office, I can bring my baby, because I'm not safe to drive to the daycare across town. And I just had to take him to work, and people had to understand. And I find that if you're forceful, it's kind of like when you're walking into a bar underage with a really bad fake ID, you just walk in like you own the place and no one will question it. I find that when it comes to taking my kids to work or integrating them into any area of my life, if I just walk in like I own the place and say, what? You mean to tell me you don't think it's normal for kids to be here? Of course it's normal. Most people just accept it. So not everyone has to come in like a wrecking ball. It's just worked for me for 40 years. But yeah,
I totally agree with you on that, Valarie, is that I'm on client calls all day, and I'm like, you know what? If my kids are there and they hear me, or you hear them, sorry, like this is just what's happening.
Yeah, that's our
You
work.
know?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be interested to see how everyone else balances. But for me, the balance is we do things as a family as much as possible. And sometimes that's me going to the school for career day and volunteering. And sometimes that's them coming to the office on a day that they have off school and coloring on the whiteboard walls and being my rubber duck for the day while I debug. And it just, I integrate me into their lives, them into my life, and family comes first. So impart your wisdom, ladies.
I just gonna want to jump in because what you said is so true to me too, because that's what I do. And I feel like that's what I've adapted to with my family, where we sync so many things together. So recently we had a talk, IWD, that is International Women's Day, and my kids were there taking a picture of me giving a talk with so many people in the audience. And everybody just walked out to me and said, wow, Madonna, you brought your kids to IWD. And my kids right now, they've met so many people. They're like, wow, mom, I love your job. So I think to me, there's a lot of benefits to that. And like you said, I've managed also to not ever feel any guilt, because I feel like my kids are already in depth, like in my workspace, like they know what I do. And they know when it's time for mommy to travel to Barcelona. Like recently, May, I was in Barcelona and they were like, yeah, mom, you go do it. And right now it's like a family thing. We're like, yeah, mom's going to Barcelona. Yay. So, and then I tell them, we're going to go to our own trip, maybe around summer break. And they're like, yes, mom, that's okay. So to me, I feel like as long as you pull them into what you do, they're very comfortable. And like you said, Valarie, I feel like what you say was so true. Like it shouldn't be us stopping our hobbies because the kids like will not allow that. No, it's just us saying that, hey, how about we include our kids to our hobbies that are more appropriate, and let's see how they adjust to that. And so far that has worked out for us. And most of the time too, when I also leave my kids and my partner, they're always very happy that they got to spend some time with their dad. Like this is boys' time because it's all boys. They're like, yeah. So they go to restaurants, they go to the rooftop when I'm not around. And when they come back, they're like, mom, we went to the rooftop without you. Like they're making me like feel bad. But so far, it's been so great. Like just bring them in, tie them into your work, and it all works out. That's what I would say.
Yeah, and I think what's helpful in that is just being very clear from day one, with your employer, and even while you're in the interview process, to make sure that you're going to be putting your kids number one. I don't have a choice, but I have to pick up my kid before 5 o'clock when daycare closes to be able to be there. Nobody else is going to be there. So I can't take meetings during that time, that's just a given. So if you want to meet with me, I'm going to tell you no. And you're okay with that. So I think that as long as we're clear with our boundaries, with our employers, and we're in a supportive space and they understand what you're carrying, I think from day one that's T minus however many weeks before while you're interviewing, making sure that that's clear so that you're in a supportive space, and can do what you need to do to support your family. And if not, well, they're not going to want to hire you anyway, and you don't want to work there. So I think that that's what helps with the guilt or the juggling or the feelings, that you have already set your boundaries, and that sets you up for success. And also your employers and your teammates too can understand how to work with you.
Thank you all. I think what you said, Odette, about being upfront with your employers is a really important piece in just setting that standard from the very start so that people understand where your priorities are is very critical in continuing to excel in your career. Well, the next question I just want to ask, I would just want to hear what you all think about. How has your tech career informed how you parent? Kind of I don't know if that's a strange question or not, but how has your career journey informed how you parent?
Go fast on this one because I feel like recently we had I actually brought my kids to this event, and there was a big person there at the event, and she got to talk about how she pushed towards having inclusiveness in like building the watches back in the days. Like watches, actually, it was so funny that it's not only watches, many things were not designed to be for women. And even like car seats, like it's so absurd when you think about it. But she told me that she was in that room making sure that the watches that were released were very well like made to fit women. And she got to tell my son that. And my son was just saying, wow, really? No. So to me, I found that him learning that so early, like back in the days that people didn't even think about these things, when he grows up and picks a career, he will always have that in mind, that it's good to be inclusive based on the fact that this issue is already there and now he knows how to fix it. Especially, let's say if he decides to work in tech or not. But as you can see, that I find that to be a nice way to just merge the two, where like your kids get to learn some stuff. And also I can tell the kids like, hey, look, in the future, if you decide to do tech, you have to make sure that you're inclusive in many ways, so that you're not leaving a certain group of people like just like that.
So for me, I think the way that I saw the question is more of like how your career kind of, was able to formulate while you're working with your kids and how that influenced things. And for me, it kind of started from the beginning because I actually founded my company 2 years ago, OMG Code, while I was nursing my second child. And so it kind of is like in my world, like I kind of always had my kids while I was developing, as a freelancer or beginning my company, like they were always there. So in a way, they're always, they're almost inseparable in terms of like what kind of impact they had in my freelancing career or so forth and so on. So it's almost like I don't know how it's like before. I don't, because it wasn't like that before. It was always with them, always integrated and always in there. And I think it's because of that, I kind of realized like, it's so hard, like the mom guilt, like, do you focus on work or do you focus on your kids? But that's the benefit, I think, from working from home, is that you're always home and then you're always, available. And so while you're working, they're going to be there next to you. And I think you also need to separate, be like, hey, it's quality over quantity. I always say, oh, what if mama's going to go on a phone call? What does that mean? And then they say, be quiet. So they understand and they kind of are able to, accept your reality. And then at the same time, after the call, I'm like, okay, let's go get ice cream. So you kind of give that, extra time like afterwards and be like, I know I worked all this time, but let's now go watch the Super Mario Brothers movie and have that quality. And that quality is so important more than quantity, because I think if you really engage and are able to provide that extra care when they want it, or when they, when you're able to give it to like the max, like some other times I've worked really hard and then I'm like, let's go to Disneyland, or let's go to this water park. And so it's like you have to give and take a bit, but you kind of have to find that balance. And, of course, it's very difficult as a mother. And I'm sure I've heard all your stories. Like, I don't know how to even think about not working from home and like working in a corporate office and then going back and going into taking care of your kids. That must be so difficult. I don't know. But yeah, as me, like I'm a digital nomad. I've traveled all around, and my kids come with me everywhere. I don't have a set location. The people that work with me, they don't have a set location. They can work from wherever as well. So like I'm more about giving freedom, flexibility, and being open. And same with raising my kids. I have them homeschooled. They're also with me in that situation. So I'm in a different kind of environment than I think some of you girls. But I just believe like this model is working for me so far, and I'm hoping that it'll keep working. And and then the influence of the tech is that my son is really into learning Scratch right now, and they're just naturally inclined to go in that direction. I give them a little bit of guidance, but then they're just like, I want to do tech or I want to learn programming, because they see you as doing it yourself. So they almost is like a positive role model in that situation.
So I actually have the exact opposite feeling as you, Melissa. So you were talking about how when you work remotely and your kids are home, you have more time. You're just always there. So it's easier to segment work and life. I have the exact opposite. Before the apocalypse, pandemic, whatever, when I was going to an office every day, I had a very easy time just cordoning off sections of my life. before I leave for the office is family time. And that's, I'm making sure everyone's fed and butts are clean and we're getting out the door on time, woot. And then from the time I landed at the gym downstairs from my office until the end of the day when I leave, that's work time. Other than, you know, I mean, I hate it when people say, don't do anything personal on your work computer. I'm sorry, if I have to send yet another email to a teacher, I'm not opening up a second computer to send a flippant email saying, yes, I'll volunteer in your classroom again. But anyway, you know, other than like the occasional class dojo message or whatever, it's work time. And it was very easy to say, families dealt with, they're in safe hands for the day. They're at the free government daycare that is public school, yay, and I'm at work. And then when I got home, it was very easy not to, you know, turn on my computer again unless there was a fire to put out or some very specific reason to do so, because now we're home. This is family time. For me, the pandemic didn't blur those lines. It squashed them and then erased them and then salted the earth. Things like, you know, when the shutdown started, my youngest was still a nursing infant, and our team agreement was to have our camera on during meetings. And the first time someone said, we need you to turn your camera on, I tried to politely decline, but was, no, that's a team agreement. Okay, click. Hey, what's up, y'all? You know, and that was neat. And they were very nice about it. And suddenly that was not a team agreement anymore. But you know, it blurred that line in such a way. I mean, it got to where we were, you know, in this house, 5 of us together 24/7, but I felt like we had so much less quality time because, you know, my West Coast colleagues that, you know, might be more respectful of my working hours when I was going to an office are suddenly cool putting a meeting on. And the number of days I have spent in the last few years at the stove stirring something with headphones on and my laptop camera on, watching me cook during a meeting. I hate it. I actually, my last role was remote. I'm actually on sabbatical right now. It's surreal. I've had a job since I was 14, other than that stay at home when I had 12 jobs, that 5-year chunk. And so this taking a couple of months for myself feels weird and foreign. But anyway, yeah, like I miss quality time. But in my last role, I was remote, but I paid for a co-working space. I found a women's only co-working space because I find that they're nicer and have better snacks, and no one hits on you while you're trying to work, and it's great. And yeah, I mean, I left my house and paid to go to an office just because I need that separation. I need the clearly defined boundaries between work and home, or else I'll work 24 and home 24, but neither of them is done well. Yeah.
Can I just, I would like to support your point because I feel like that is so true. And for me too, that's what I say to do that. It's very tough when you're working from home and then you're still having to raise your kids, and setting that boundary is very important. Because to me also, I felt like it was so hard to separate the two, because sometimes you'll be tied up with work all the way until it's so evening late and you're like, oh my God, it's time to cook. What time is it? So what I've decided to do is set up timetables that, hey, look, and I know timetables don't work for everybody, but to me, it's very strict. Like if it's 5, I'm done with work. I'm not logging in and not doing anything. And that's how we do it now. And then definitely, I do want to find a co-working space because I feel like, well, I need to be getting out. However, I feel like working from home really enables me to pick my kids on time, drop them to school on time, take them to soccer practice, set them to swimming, which is not an advantage I never had before. So it's a gamble. I don't know. It's so tough to decide, but I definitely do want to find a co-working space. So this is me saying my struggles out there.
As a working mom, and I think Valarie, you talked a little bit about this, how important is vacation, travel, time away, self-care, when you're both trying to excel in your career, but also be like that rock star parent? Odette, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's critical. I mean, I surprisingly now get my self-care time because I have 50% custody of my kids. So, you know, I make it a point that when I have my kids, it's 100% intentional in it to win it. I have my boundaries really clear. And then when I don't, that's when I, end up working way longer hours, and doing everything I need to do, but also taking care of myself and going to play basketball, going to see shows, going to travel, going to do what I can in my snippet of 2 days there that I can get in. So yeah, I mean, it's weird. It's quite an adjustment from having been a stay-at-home mom 100% with my kids to then 50-50 is like, wait, what? And I sort of feel like I have split personalities a little bit, like a single mom with no kids and then 100% single mom, in there. So I have, it's a blessing and a curse. It's difficult to be away from my kids that much. But it's also that time to be able to recharge is critical for my well-being, for my mental health, and for being excited about being with my kids and being excited about work, because it can be hard to be engaged in both of those things. So that recharge time is so important. I think, especially as women of color, as queer folks, as any underrepresented people, that we're just taught to grind all the time, and we have to because we haven't had the choice. It's like I've had to hustle. I came to this country at the age of 5. I saw my parents like, how are we going to pay the bills? How are we going to go to the best college? How are we going to do this? To be able to be successful in this country and make it. And now it's like, okay, we're here. And now I don't know. I think a lot about, I'm going off topic here, but with my kids and their life and their values, and that they don't have the same kind of stress that I had. And as we work in tech, and we don't have the same socioeconomics pressures, that our kids don't have the same ones that we had. How do you instill those values, in their lives? The values, what we value, right? What we value as hustle and grinding and go get it. And of course, they're still kids of color. Of course, they're still gonna have to work harder than other kids in there. But it really makes me think as a mom, what do I value as a human? And now as my kids who are more privileged than me, what kind of values do I want to instill in them? And what's important? How do they get to rest? And how do they get to be happy and be themselves and not carry the weight of the world on their shoulders? So I don't know, that was all over the place, but things that I think about with my kids and how they get to grow up differently than I do, thank goodness. And how they get to move in the world, and hopefully they'll be able to get to rest and enjoy their life and be happy and take vacations, and it won't be this thing where they're feeling guilty or it's not the norm for them.
I don't want to sound like an old person, but sometimes I kind of hate how easy I've been able to make my children's lives. Like, they're not going to appreciate it the way we do. Like, what if we make the world a better place? They won't know true suffering. Now, I hope they never know true suffering. But I do want to speak to the self-care bit. Especially for listeners who hear the phrase self-care and think of like bubble bath or spa day. I would like to give some examples of my favorite self-care. Some of the best self-care I've ever given myself is early in the shutdowns. I started paying someone to come into my home every 2 weeks and do my deep cleaning. Like, I could tidy during the day because I don't think people realize, and I had forgotten from before the shutdowns, but when you get up in the morning and get everyone out the door at like 7 a.m. and no one's really in the house except for that hour, and then you're gone all day and you come back and it's only a few hours until bedtime, no one lives in your house, it stays clean. March 16th of 2020, my house fell apart because suddenly 5 people lived there all day, every day. So paying someone, it is very much a DevOps mentality. What can I automate and offload from my list of things to do? Instacart is self-care. If I don't have the spoons to put on real pants with not an elastic waist and go to the grocery store and shop, Instacart is a lifesaver because not only is someone else doing that labor for me and I'm helping support my economy, but when I inevitably remember 12 more things after I've checked out, I can still add them. And that's just bonus. Things like I don't change my own oil in my car. I pay someone to do that. If you have the privilege of offloading some of your responsibilities, it is a gift to yourself. For me, every time I teach one of my children to do a new chore that's not going to be on my list anymore, that is self-care. One, I'm teaching them how to adult so that when they leave my house, they're not 18 and asking someone for help with laundry. But two, it's one less thing on my to-do list. And I am in a tangent because we talk a lot about moms and women who code, and it's Mother's Day, and I get all that. When I talk about my to-do list, I actually mean our to-do list. I am hashtag blessed. My partner, I've heard horror stories about partners that have a stay-at-home who then goes back to work, and they expect that stay-at-home to now do all of that work plus a full-time job. And I would like the record to reflect, it wasn't self-care, it was partner care. But the day I started back to work, I never had to ask for who's responsible for what to change. I never had to ask for equity in household responsibilities because I'm now working outside of the home. My partner stepped up without any mention from me. And suddenly, as a stay-at-home, there was no self-care because it was everybody else care. If there's a sick kid, I'm awake all night because he has to go put on a suit and go to the office. I can be in my jammies and lounge. So I'll stay up with the sick kid. First time we had a sick kid after I went back to work, I was panicking. And my partner said, hey, let's look at our meeting schedules and see who it makes more sense to stay home. What? So we talk a lot about self-care, and I feel like that puts the onus on the individual to always take care of themselves. Even if you're a single parent, if you have any friends, family, hobby communities. For me, I've done judo for 30 years. I have judo guys that I consider as close to me as my blood relatives, if not closer. Self-care doesn't always have to be taking care of yourself. Sometimes self-care is reaching out to a friend or a family member or your partner or a parent or a neighbor and saying, hey man, I'm drowning. I could really use blank, whatever it is. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on self-care.
I love that you say reaching out for support because community care is very important as parents, right? I'm a single mom, so I've had to be very creative in what my support system looks like. But I have a very strong support system because I was creative. And then when you think about your career, many women report not having support, not having mentorship. And so I'd love to hear, and Melissa, maybe you can start for us. How have you built your support system as a mom and as a founder?
That's a really interesting question because most of the time it's just me, to be honest. And that's because I choose that. I travel around. I'm usually the only person that's in that specific area that I know. And then it's just my kids. But who is really great are the babysitters and the nannies, because if you hire them, now you can have your moment to, go out and just have your moment by yourself, or because you really need, if you're a single mother, you need a moment away from your children, like a considerable, hours block span, because or else you're just around them all the time. So if you don't have any support is when you have to look into maybe splurging a little and getting a hotel night for yourself while the nanny or your babysitter takes care of your children, because you need some time of self-care, because if you don't take care of yourself, no one else will. You need to work on yourself first, because if you don't take care of yourself, you cannot take care of your children. You cannot take care of your work. You cannot take care of your household, because if you're not good, then no one else will be good. So for that reason, I think the focus really needs to be on, you have to be a little selfish and you have to, take care of yourself first before anyone else, or else the whole ship goes down.
I want to ask, we've talked a lot about values and just everything that's happened in the world from COVID and things like that. With everything going on in the world, there are a lot of trending topics right now. With everything going on in the world, what values do you try to instill in your children so that they can handle adversity in their life?
With this one, normally tell my kids, be kind and just be kind to other people, because people are going through a lot. And as you've mentioned, there's so many things going around the world right now. And it's so sad that people sit on the other side and start attacking people on the internet. So as they continue to grow up, I always try to instill the kindness kind of feeling so that they don't grow to be the people that bully others. So we have like this, is it like affirmation thing that we sit in the house and say, don't be a bystander, like speak out if you see anybody bullying the other person, even at school. So for me, I would say kindness. That's the thing that I'm teaching my kids. Be kind to any other person.
I like that so much. I'm a strong believer of that. I just think, just love others as, you want to be loved, and love is what makes the world go round and all that stuff. So I really strongly align with that. I even tell my children, like, I hate fighting. So whenever I see them fighting, I have them stop. And I specifically say, now go and give a hug and a kiss, because there is no fighting. I don't want it. That's the one thing I get really angry about, is when I see other, my kids fighting. So, but yeah, I think just showing that, I even show that to my clients. Like, I'm like, I treat them as I would want to be treated. And I think they appreciate that so much. And I'm able to, just offer that to them. And they're so grateful to me, and I'm grateful back to them. And if you just show kindness to one another, like, so much will get done. There's no like animosity. There's no like, even if deadlines don't get reached, or even if, something else comes up and there's an issue, like, if you're just kind to one another, like, it'll all work out.
I think this one's hard for me, and I'm trying to figure it out for my kids, honestly, because how I've, grown up and survived and thrived in this country. I'm not sure those are the values that I want to, instill in my kids. And how do I, raise a brown boy and a brown girl in this world, and have them lead with love and empathy and sharing their feelings. And when, my first reaction is like, that's dangerous, and trying to figure out how to get them to be open, loving humans that can express themselves and their feelings when I know it's not that safe. So just trying to figure it, not that safe, not safe. And trying to, to raise them differently without the trauma and the history that I've carried for and that my family has for generations. So I think, I'm learning, and as they're younger, right, the values and what I really want to stress to them will be different than when they're preteens and teenagers and adults and different things. So I think that's the biggest thing, that motherhood is so hard. I need lots of upskilling. I wish there was more training, for us, because there's no guide to this, and there really should be, because what I think is hard now, when my kids are 3 and 6 versus I used to work with teenagers. When they're teenagers, you better forget it, sign me up for the fevers and the tantrums versus what I'll be dealing with later. So I think that there's so much humility and so much learning that happens for us as moms that is really transferable, that I mess up every single day trying to work with my kids and support them and love them. And I think the biggest piece is letting them know that we're human as moms, that we mess up all the time, and that we really build intimacy and deeper relationships when we do that. And then we teach them, to move in the world by in that way. So I don't know what to tell you about that, but it's hard. Anybody,
I'm
if
with
you have
you.
answers for me, let me know.
I'm with you, Odette. I mean, I've always valued empathy and, trying to see the world through the perspective of other humans and imagine their lived experience and ask them about it and really learn and stop speaking and listen and all these things. And then, I encouraged my kids to, lead with empathy and kindness. And it worked really great until my oldest came out a year and some change ago as trans. And now, she still wants to go to protests and yell the loudest, and she still wants to march. And now I'm afraid. But I'm still teaching her to lead and be compassionate and empathetic. And she's such an example to me, actually. recently she was going to be spending some time with a relative, and I warned her, look, they're going to misgender you the whole time, and they don't even hear that they're doing it. But if it bothers you, you don't have to go. I'll come get you the minute you're sick of it, whatever, if you don't feel seen or loved or whatever. And I just looked at her big doughy eyes as she said, I know they love me. They're just old and ignorant. It's okay. Oh, you've been listening. Yeah, it is terrifying. But the values that I try to instill in my children, I've tried to model for them. We talk a lot about, will this matter in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? And there have been times where I'm under deadline and I really should have gotten something done for work, but my middle child got her finger slammed in a door and we needed to go to the ER. What's going to matter more in 5 years? Getting that thing written right now versus tomorrow morning, or my kid having mom at the ER to hold her while her finger gets sewn back on. We talk a lot about, there are things in this world that truly matter right now, this minute, and there are things that really don't, that other people think matter for you. But you can identify what really matters. And, again, it's terrifying to me to purposefully be not job hunting. And I keep fighting the urge every day, because I know that, one, my youngest went into daycare at like a month old. I get to spend a couple months with my 3-year-old. What? I've done more coloring in the last few days than is reasonable for an adult human. And I'm treasuring it because it's novel again. And I'll be so thankful to go back to work when I do, because wow, I've done a lot of coloring. But I'm trying to model for my children that, in 5, 10, 15 years, it won't matter that I took a couple months off work. Whatever bills I canceled, whatever, restaurants we don't eat at for a couple of months to conserve money so I can do this, that won't matter. But in 15 years, my youngest is going to look at these pictures of mommy taking him to the zoo during the middle of the week, and the aquarium, and coloring, and meals we cook together. And those memories is what is actually going to matter. When I had kids, I was terrified that I'd screw them up. And I'm just going to put this nicely. My mother was a very complicated human being. And I could spend hours listing off all of her pros and her cons, her strengths and her weaknesses. But at the end of the day, she's been gone 7 years. And I can list off for you every negative character trait she had and still say with 100% sincerity, I would give anything to have lunch with her. Just lunch. I miss her every day. So to all you moms out there, if you feel like you're messing it up, or you don't have all the answers, or you've done something wrong, or you're not balancing, or you're not Pinterest mom, or you're not Donna Reed, or you're not perfect, guess what? At the end of your life, all they're going to remember is the good stuff about you and how much they miss you. So take a deep breath and know that you're doing it right. You're doing it right. You got this. Every time I have that mom guilt sink in and start to think that I'm making all the wrong choices, I remember that I've got 3 tiny humans who think I'm cool. They love me. They love spending time with me. They think I'm fantastic, and they can tell you all of my faults because I'm real honest about them. And they don't care.
Thank you so.
Also, sorry, Natalia, I wanted to say, I love that so much because I've also learned that every time I make a mistake and my kids call it out, I say, oh, I'm sorry about that. So teaching them also to say sorry when I'm wrong, like, look, I'm not the bigger person all the time. I do make a mistake. So that's what I instill in them by saying sorry. Yeah. Like, hey, oh yeah, sorry about that. I know I made a mistake there. And they're like, it's okay, mom.
Thank you so much, everybody, for everything that you shared. I have a final question, and I'm going to start with Odette. Odette, will you share your 15-second pro tip for mothers in tech, and then also tell us how we can connect with you if listeners want to learn more from you about your tech journey or parenthood while in tech. And then we'll go to Melissa after you.
Sure. Set boundaries, take care of yourself, and be patient and have grace with yourself, I would say. And you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm the only Odette Nemes. So you can just find me there, or email me at odette@onramp.io.
So tip is believe in yourself, don't give up, and follow your dreams. That's something that I've instilled in everything that I do. But specifically for mothers, it's okay to be in chaos and uncertainty, and for you to be able to thrive in it eventually and realize that you can take on anything after that once you're able to do all these things. Of course, it'll be a painful process, but in the end, you know, no pain, no gain, I would say. And you can find me, I'm on LinkedIn as Melissa Hong, or you can just search for my company, OMG Code, and you can send me a message on my site or anywhere that you find me.
Valarie, your 15-second pro tip and where we can find you.
Yeah. So in Western culture, we tell, especially mothers, but parents in general, we are supposed to be good full-time partners, parents, employees, athletes, chauffeurs, psychiatrists, cooks, housekeepers, resource allocation specialists. We have all these full-time jobs that people tell us to do. So my 15-second advice is every day wake up and pick 2. You can be good at 2 in any given day. And whichever 2 you're focusing on that day, let go of the guilt for the rest. No one can have multiple full-time jobs and do them all well. Just pick 2. If you'd like to find me, I'm on Twitter at Valarie Regas, and I'm on LinkedIn. Always happy to connect. And I do spell my name Valarie because why? Why would we do it the normal way? I'll never have a monogram keychain unless I pay special. So.
I bet that leaves me. So I would say nobody has it figured out. So you got this. And also, you can find me on LinkedIn, Madona Wambua, or on Twitter, Madonna_Wambua, on Instagram, or you can email me, madonna.wambua@gmail.com. And it was so much fun doing this today with all of you. Super cool.
Thank you all so much for having this conversation today, sharing your parenthood journey while in tech. I've been inspired by your journeys, and I hope that you learn from each other. And I know our listeners are going to be really, really excited. Thank you all for listening. You can join us on Wednesday, May 24th for the Women Who Code Dev Summit, mobile and web. You can register at the link on the screen. Also, if you want to join or be more involved in the Women Who Code community, go to womenwhocode.com for information on how to join a network, track, volunteer, and donate. Remember, you can always follow us on all social media at Women Who Code, including TikTok. It's been great. Thank you so much for being here.